Is resale necessary for the survival of sneakers as we know it? We'll get into that this time on Fire Footwear. Welcome back to Fire Footwear, everybody. As always, this is your host, Matt Freites. I hope that this finds you well, and I want to thank you, as always, for coming back to this podcast and this YouTube channel. No matter how it is that you consume this, it's always great that people consume it. We have reached the time of year where we're all tired, man. The end of the year is tough. If you've had the kind of year that many people have, you're just waiting for that calendar to turn over to 2024. It's always nice to start fresh and start anew. And so as we get to the end of this year, I find myself needing to find topics, and sometimes it's a little difficult because you're trying to get gifts wrapped and you're trying to just put a bow on everything that has happened throughout the year. But luckily, I have a lot of people who listen to this show and who watch it on YouTube who ask me questions. And I say that now every single week, but it's true, and it has become more true as the weeks have gone on. And lately, it was brought to my attention some things that were happening around the Powerpuff Girl Pack SB release that happened recently. I think it happened earlier this week. And I noticed that there was some peculiar behavior around this. Two things that came to mind. First thing that came to mind, some skate shops were making people crush the boxes or destroy the boxes if they wanted to walk out with this shoe. And the reasoning and the rationale behind that is because they knew that by crushing the box, it was going to kill the resale value of this shoe. On the other hand, you had shops that were requiring people to dress up as their favorite Powerpuff Girl. Hello! Now, I would say that this pack is really not geared toward your sneakerhead today, I would imagine. And I don't know how many people today, in terms of the entire bell curve of the sneaker world, actually care about the Powerpuff Girls in a very meaningful way.
I don't care!
So to see these sneaker shops or these skate shops go to these lengths to make sure that people really wanted these shoes, I found it interesting. But the part that I want to start with is the crushing of the box. And I ask you now about resale, because I think that we have always had a complicated relationship with resale. First, to talk about the box crushing, I feel like it is not the skate shop's duty to police how people participate in the culture. If there's something that I try not to do on this show and that I don't think is a good idea in any realm, it's gatekeeping. And I feel like by making people go to this shop, making them crush a box, while it is going to guarantee that they're not going to resell them, does it necessarily make it a better experience for them as a boutique or as a skate shop? I kind of feel like it is not these brick and mortar stores' job to police the resale market. Let's face it, not just in sneakers, but in just about any market that's out there. Scalping has always existed. If you went to a baseball game in the 1990s, there was always somebody outside trying to sell you tickets under the table. Now, it's just a little bit more overt because we have sites like StubHub, we have sites like StockX and GOAT that are allowing this resale market to exist in an overt way, but in a regulated way. And that is something that we lacked a long time ago. And now the regulated part, I think, is a good thing because we as consumers at least know that we're getting into something legitimate. You could make a little bit of an argument that maybe that's not as true for StockX, but when it comes to eBay, when it comes to GOAT, I feel like we are getting a very authentic experience so that you can be guaranteed that you are getting the goods that you are actually paying your hard-working money for. But when it comes to us as the consumer, I think what these skate shops are doing, and it's not just skate shops, we have seen a lot of examples of this over the years. When you go to a release, they're making you prove what your shoe size is and things of this nature. But these skate shops, these boutiques are making an assumption about just about every single consumer that is coming into their store to buy this sneaker. They are assuming that a vast majority of people are trying to flip these shoes for a major profit. And I can understand these shops wanting to make sure that the integrity of the game stays the way that they feel that it should. And if you think about a lot of the owners of these shops, we're talking about the James Whitners of the world. They have been in the game a long time. The sneaker game matters to them in a way that maybe is different than it does to somebody who just discovered it a year ago. I can understand them wanting to preserve that. But at the same time, it's kind of gone now. It's almost impossible to preserve that. And I think what has happened now is that we, the sneaker community, are putting up with a lot of activities that aren't necessarily something that we should have to put up with. While I am somebody who has had a complicated relationship with resale because I myself am not going to pay exorbitant prices for something as simple as a shoe that I'm going to wear and beat up, I can also understand that there are people who want to make a profit off of it. And here's the thing. If Nike or Adidas or any other sneaker company didn't want that to exist, they would have done something about it already. You can go in the news over the last 5 years and see that Nike has been litigious out the ass no matter what it is. If they feel like you or anybody else is infringing on their ability to sell shoes and make money, they are going to sue you, and they're going to make sure that you cease and desist all of those activities. And the thing is, StockX and GOAT and eBay, they haven't been sued by Nike at all as far as I can tell. The only thing that Nike has done is sued StockX for selling fake shoes on their marketplace. Nike, Adidas, Puma, whoever. They don't actually care about resale the way that we think that they do when they make us do these activities or they make us go through these hoops. They care about selling their product. Nike, at the end of the day, no matter how much a shoe resells for, is going to get its bag. It's always going to get its bag.
Money, money.
And so by forcing consumers to do things like destroy a box when not everybody is trying to resell it is a policing and a gatekeeping that I just can't get behind. Not everybody wants to resell the shoes. Some people like to have the box and preserve the box because it means something to them. So the fact that these boutiques and skate shops are trying to do this to me is a little ridiculous. On the other side of that coin, the fact that people are willing to jump through these kind of hoops kind of says something about where we are as a culture. But if you did go through all of that, if you did dress up to go to a skate shop to get this shoe, then you are so much more dedicated than I am. And honestly, so much more dedicated than a lot of other people out there. But you're not alone. Sneakerheads in general will go through a lot to get a shoe. Now, let's talk about resale for a minute, because I asked the fundamental question at the top of the show about whether resale was necessary for the future of sneaker culture. Maybe that's going to trigger a lot of people, because I know that we have had a complicated relationship on this show and just in general about where resale fits into the culture at large. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I think that as time has gone on, I have noticed that there is a trend. I've noticed that the trend is that lots of sneakers are available, and the availability is great. Don't get me wrong. That is actually a good thing, but that's a good thing in the moment. And when I think about myself as being 40 years old, I think about my son who is getting older every single day. He one day is going to be part of this legacy. He one day is going to be a sneakerhead. Maybe.
That's like a baby's toy.
And that's where I find myself being hung up. How is the future going to be carried by the next generation? Resale did something for sneaker culture that I think people discounted. Maybe they didn't discount it, but I think that they discount it when they think about, I want it to be abolished. It created hype. And it created a desire. It created a marketplace for people to go to where you could traffic in this idea that scarcity was real. One of the things that sneaker companies have done is given off the illusion that resources are scarce, that sneakers are rare. And they do that on purpose, creating small inventory for us to pick through. And the demand has never been higher, or it had never been higher. And so when you have a super high demand and a very small supply, that is going to continue to get people's interest piqued. And then, of course, you add social media, you add celebrities, and all of that stuff on top of it. It snowballs into this hype train that just cannot be stopped. And that's kind of where we were in 2019. And as the calendar turned over to 2020 and scarcity became a reality worldwide, the pandemic made people feel like we were running out of resources.
I'm trying to find the Trouble doll. Me too, me too. Do you have any more in the back?
We felt even more constricted in that regard. And then you put The Last Dance out. When we're all craving some semblance of connection, some semblance of humanity, we're craving something new. And that got people all juiced up. The sneaker resale market took off from there because people felt like sneakers were rare. They felt like they were something that you had to have. Some of it came out of boredom, but some of it came out of strategic marketing on Nike's part. Lots of people made a lot of money, and now what we are left with is resale having come down to where, yes, the hype sneakers are resold at higher prices, but we are nowhere near where we were before. And I think what has come with that, while availability is a great thing, I think apathy has come with that. And that means that if we want sneakers to continue to be a phenomenon long past our generation, the younger generation is going to have to pick it up. And in order for them to pick it up, they're going to have to care about it. Do young people care about anything the way that we cared about sneakers, or the way that I cared about collecting baseball cards, or insert anything that you cared very passionately about when you were growing up, and especially when you were a teenager?
Wow! We're rich! We're rich! We're rich, ain't we? Wow! Wow!
Because the availability and the lack of scarcity has made it so that just about everybody has sneakers. And while I'm on record as saying that that is a great thing, I do think that it's great. I have now come to realize that it's great today. It doesn't mean that it's great for 10 years from now. It doesn't mean that when my son is of age to actually have some heat, he's actually going to care about it the way that I do. He may look at me like I'm a lame dad trying to be too cool. And maybe that will be me. I don't know.
Oh, no, baby, please. You are far too fine to look so sad.
But I think that resale actually has a place in the future. And I don't necessarily want it to go to the levels that it went to 5 years ago, 3 years ago, where everything sold out and it was ridiculous. But I do think that we need it. Is it fair all the time? No. But I do think that it's necessary if sneakers are going to continue to keep a legacy well past when Michael Jordan passes away, and well past when we are at an acceptable age to participate in this culture. We have to embrace it. And it's needed because hype is needed. Scarcity is almost kind of needed because people need to care about it passionately. And right now, because things are so much easier to get, I think that the apathy has gone up as a result. And I'm worried a little bit about sneaker culture. You all care about this, and that's why you're here. I care about it. And it's our job to spread that love. It's our job to make our children understand what it means to us. What they do with it from there, it's on them. But I think that we need to understand that while resale sucks, the idea that there is something valuable because it is scarce is actually what keeps sneakers viable in the pop culture headspace. It keeps it as something that people are talking about. Once we lose that flame, it's gone. And it probably will never come back. And that ultimate question of, are sneakers dead? Well, it can't be answered right now. But if you talk to me in 5 or 10 years, there may be a definitive answer. And that leads me to my question. Is resale necessary for the survival of sneakers as we know it? Get in touch with the show. Instagram @FireFootwearPod is the handle. TikTok @FireFootwearPod is the handle if you want to see some of the reels that I post there. If you're a Facebook user, Fire Footwear, a sneaker podcast is what you would search. And those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you want to listen to the audio version, they are slightly different. Fire Footwear, a sneaker podcast on Apple, Spotify, and any other podcast app that you use out there. As always, I would appreciate if you support the Matty Ice Media Network, mattyicemedia.com, for the other podcasts that we have, including Iceman and Coach. I hope this finds everybody well. I hope this finds everybody safe, and I will talk to you next time. This is Fire Footwear.